This is too funny not to do. Wait a second. So we've got the 3 Mark of the Isles. We actually have all 3. Okay, the 3 Mark of the Isles. We've got the Dawn and Dusk, and we have Deny on top of this. This game has gone on way later than a normal game would ever go, but this is way too funny not to do. We've got the 3 12 attack Zeds, okay, and we have Deny as well, so he can't stop us at all. There's nothing he can do here. So we've got them all basically on board. This is a total of 6 by 12. I'm doing my multiplication tables in my head. That's 72 damage on board. 72 on board. Okay, this was a little extreme. Oh god. It goes to minus 40. Okay. Actually, this is too funny to not do. So we're just gonna stick it in here. Let's just see how he responds. Oh, that's interesting. He has no response. He's just dead. Hey guys, what is up? Swim here, and as you can see, I put a little clip at the start of this one just because this deck has a pretty interesting thing that it's showing off. This is a deck that I call my disgusting OTK deck, and to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how powerful it is. It's a pretty strange deck, so if you've watched me my stream in the past, you might have seen me fiddling around with some similar concepts. I was using like different other regions. I've tried like Demacia for this, and I've tried Nox as well. But this is a combo that uses Shadow Isles as the second color. And as you saw in the intro, there's a few different combos, but one of the main ones is using Inspiring Mentor and then Green Glade Duo on turn 2. On turn 3, you can pass. And on turn 4, you can use Mark of the Isles with Dawn and Dusk, and if your opponent doesn't answer this, the game is literally over. Of course, that's because between the duo picking up the buffs as well as tripling itself for 1 turn, you will have enough damage to be able to punch through the opponent's Nexus, and then some. Obviously, this is answerable with some spot removals as well as some card like Deny, perhaps. So you'll have to play a little bit differently in those matchups. There are 2 or 3 other main combos that this deck can offer. Obviously, you can do the same thing with Navori Conspirator, who also has Elusive, but one big thing is you can do it with Zed as well. So if you do the same exact thing, you will have Zed on board on turn 3, skip the first 2 turns, turn 3 Zed, turn 4, you can use the same exact thing. You'll have the right amount of mana to use Mark of the Isles and Dawn and Dusk on your Zed, and on that turn, if you're attacking on evens, if you're attacking on odds, you'll have to wait until turn 5. But if you're attacking on evens, on that turn, turn 4, you will have 36 damage on the board because you'll have 6 Zeds, each of them will summon a clone, and each of the Zeds will have 6 attack because, of course, you know, it's buffed by the Mark of the Isles, right? And of course, naturally, your opponent can't disrupt Dawn and Dusk with removal, spot removal. Some damage effect, like Mystic Shot, they will have 1 opportunity to use that on the turns Zed is played, but on turn 4, if they try to do that when you're using Dawn and Dusk or before, your Mark of the Isles will keep it out of that range. So at that point, you're pretty much in the clear. And the final combo you can do is Cursed Keeper in the same way. If you summon 2 additional Cursed Keepers with Dawn and Dusk, you will be getting 2 4/4s on the board in your opponent's face, and when they die, they're going to summon 4/4s that stick on the board, because of course when Keeper dies, it summons Escaped Abominations. So now that we know what the deck is about, let's basically break it down. So this is a deck that, in terms of power level, honestly, it's really hard to say. This is a deck that's definitely, if you play too greedy, it is counterable by using like a very well-timed removal. You will have to wait a little bit longer for this to go off. Ultimately, I think this deck is quite powerful. This is probably going to end up being something along the lines of a tier 2 deck. It's hard to say. This is a new idea that I was basically crafting on my stream just a day and a half ago, and I haven't had a lot of time to think about it that much and play about all the other matchups in my head about how the openings would go and how you would play different positions and different mulligans. So it could be a very powerful deck. It could be a tier 1 deck. I'm not sure. But one big thing is your opponent does have the opportunity to interact with you if they know exactly what you're doing. So if you're against an opponent who knows what you're doing, you will have to play a little more passive and a little more reserved. You might not be able to go off on like turn 4 or 5, even though that's funniest. And of course, we're running a couple denies. So if you're willing to wait a couple, like 2 extra turns for the combo, you can add deny to your combo and make it basically unstoppable at that point. All right. So the pros and the cons of this deck. The pros are it's pretty hilarious seeing this deck go off. You can end the game like that. Like literally, if you get a good draw, the game is just over already. And if you don't, you can usually just kind of get a few turns of value with cards, you know, your typical keeper package. You've got keeper, you've got butcher, you've got islander into keeper. You know, you've got a lot of cards that will buy you a few turns and generate board presence. This is a powerful deck, right? It's not super reliant on this combo, but it has a few different combos that can enable you a free win on top of that. And we've even got the Dark Water Scourge and the Death Mark as well, which of course is a nice little pocket combo for you to pick up. All right. So the pros are, you know, it can blow out the game extremely quickly. It's very fast and it's very unique. It's just a huge early combo deck that feels pretty amazing when it goes off. It feels super cheesy. The cons are, I'm not sure how well it'll hold up against intelligent play. I'm sure there's probably a lot of you guys that are thinking to yourselves right now that it's like, this will never work against a smart player. And it definitely, yeah, I mean, you're not going to have that level of like turn 4 kill against a smart player who has a good deck. That won't happen. But this deck isn't reliant on that concept, right? This deck will be able to, you know, buy itself a few turns. None of the cards in this deck are completely necessary for this concept. They just happen to work with it, right? Like you can still use a lot of powerful cards. As an example, Mark of the Isles can be used on Zed for a powerful buff, and then you can switch off with Death Mark so it keeps the buff forever, because Mark of the Isles keeps the buff forever, right? This deck is interwoven with a lot of basically these Shadow Isles combos, such that even if your draw isn't like hyper combo-y good, you will still have a powerful early game. There's still just so many things for you to pick up and hit. So anyway, that's the deck. As you can see, this is, I wouldn't say the deck is not gimmicky per se, but it's not all in on a gimmick. All of your tools can combo together in unique and interesting ways, such that if you play intelligently and are able to, you know, flex up your strategy, depending on the hand, depending on the opponent, you're going to be able to get a lot of wins with this deck. So that's one of the pros and cons, I would say, is that this deck is pretty difficult to play if you want to play it perfectly. Depending on what kind of player you are, that could be a good thing or a bad thing if you like the challenge. But you're going to have to play very differently depending on the opponent's colors. If they have Ionia, you'll have to respect deny, and you'll have to time your sequences differently based on that. You'll have to watch how much mana they keep up. You have to play around the spot removal your opponent might have for a card like your Zed or your Green Glade. So the timing of your combo and the tools that you want to use, the tools that you want to mulligan, are going to change from game to game, okay? And I think that is, personally for me, one of the biggest appeals of this deck. All right, now that we've got that all broken down, let's talk about the actual deck build itself, why we have some of the cards that we have. As always, if you guys have any questions or, you know, comments, you can let me know. But I'm going to be leaving a pinned comment in the chat that's going to be linking to the Mobalytics page for this deck. Why that's important is because as I tweak this deck, I will update that page, but am unable to update these videos. So check the link out if you want a version of the deck that I might have updated since the time of posting this video. And if you want to skip the deck build and get straight into the good stuff, there's probably going to be a comment that will link you right to the start of the gameplay, as always. Alright guys, let's get into the specific build of this. So the most core concept to this deck is the Shadow Isles core package, or as I would say, Cursed Keeper. This card is incredibly powerful. I think this is kind of the core card of Shadow Isles personally, and it enables so many disgusting combos. Cursed Keeper on turn 2, alongside Ravenous Butcher, will generate for 2 cards and 2 mana, a 3/2 and a 4/4, which is of course a very powerful combo. You're basically paying a 2 mana 3/2 to play a 0 mana 4/4. That's incredibly powerful early pressure and tempo. But it's not just that. Cursed Keeper can also be triggered with Glimpse Beyond to sacrifice it, and more importantly, it can be triggered with Oblivious Islander. If you have a hand with Islander on turn 1, you can use that on the Keeper in your hand. Turn 2, that'll give it Ephemeral. You'll be able to play the Keeper in your hand on turn 2 for 1 mana, and it'll die, creating the Escaped Abomination at the end, right? And lastly, there's a few other things you can do in a pinch, but the bigger thing you can do with Curse Keeper is you can even Mark of the Isles it if you've got a pretty awkward hand, or if you're trying to go off with Dawn and Dusk, right? So Cursed Keeper is pretty much just a extraordinarily powerful card and one of the most important tools to try to mulligan for with this deck. All right, and everything else is going to kind of combo with it and combo together as well, because you'll notice, you know, the cards that combo with Keeper are all interwoven between themselves as well. They aren't all reliant on Keeper. For example, you know, a good way to trigger Ravenous Butcher or Glimpse Beyond could in fact be Hapless Aristocrat, the 1/1 that summons a Spiderling, or even using Inspiring Mentor's 1/1 body is totally fine, especially if you're, you know, looking for like a blocking spot and sacrificing it anyway. All right, so Inspiring Mentor is a very, very powerful tool. It's one of Ionia's best cards. Do not underestimate this little guy and his ability to buff up a plethora of cards, but in this deck, Zed and Green Glade Duo are going to be great buff targets. There's also nothing at all wrong with using Mentor on Navora Conspirator, and then on turn 2 playing your 4/3 elusive unit, recalling the Mentor for later use, probably next turn right then, right? So that's a cute additional combo that this deck has as well. Then we've got Mark of the Isles, the powerful reach potential card. Works great with elusives, works great with Zed. This is a big combo tool. You're just able to get so much value with this card in terms of just kind of forcing a game to end very quickly, right? Black Spear is an amazing card for Shadow Isles. You know, 2 mana for 3 damage is great. And again, this is another card that works very well with the Keeper package, just because when you're running Keeper, it means you're running cards like Glimpse Beyond, cards like Ravenous Butcher, even potentially cards like Islander can like help you trigger Black Spear. And when your Black Spear is able to be triggered, a 2 mana deal 3 is premium removal. It's the best removal in the game when you're able to reliably create a deck where this will be able to go off. Ideally before the combat phase would be best, because of course a removal that you can only use after combat phase is a really big limitation. Then we've got Duo and Conspirator, our elusive cards. As mentioned before, you know, Conspirator is mostly for the Inspiring Mentor, but you can also use it on Oblivious Islander as well to be able to reuse Islander's ability, often stacking the Ephemeral on the same target to double reduce something's cost by 1. That can work pretty well. And Duo is just a pretty great card all around. I would say Mentor has the pretty unique ability to push Duo's health to 2, which puts her outside of Vile Feast range, which can be pretty impactful because Vile Feast is an incredibly amazing card, and you'll see it in a lot of decks. Hey, look at that. Speaking of Vile Feast, hey, it's in this deck. This is a fantastic card. Being able to drain 1, kill something, summon a Spiderling is really adorable. Great answer for other people running Green Glade Duo. It's going to be a pretty common card in decks, and in like you can imagine a really bricked chunky hand where your hand is just not working and you're just thirsty for tools, you can use Vile Feast on your Cursed Keeper. You don't want to do this unless it's a last resort, but this can work pretty well, all right? Then we've got Dark Water Scourge and Deathmark. Don't fall into the trap of feeling like you have to use these cards together. Dark Water Scourge can be good against a wide board on just like turn 3 or turn 4 if your opponent is going wide and they're ready to smack you up. Dark Water Scourge is very similar to Haunted Relic. It basically says, you can't really attack me this turn, you know, and that's pretty powerful for 3 mana. But of course, when you combine it with Deathmark, it goes off even more. Being able to get this effect permanently on the board with this lifesteal and a 5/5 for that cheap is really powerful, and you can take a unit down while you're at it. Note that Deathmark is also a great combo with Mark of the Isles, as mentioned earlier. It can even work with something like Oblivious Islander. Deny is, you know, a card for this deck just because this deck does commit to a very powerful big combo, and you don't want anything happening to your Dawn and Dusk. Because, of course, keep in mind, and I should have mentioned this at the start, but Dawn and Dusk, if they counter it by either removing your unit or even messing with it, like, for example, if you play Dawn and Dusk and they frostbite your unit, your clones will be frostbitten, and that'll be basically useless, right? So depending on the deck you're up against, you're going to have to play very differently. You're going to have to be very aware of their tools so that that doesn't happen or go off on a turn where they've spent their mana, or when their odds of having the tool are low, or when you have denied to be able to answer what you think they have, but deny can't be used on burst speed spells. So this is all stuff you're going to have to keep in mind. Zed, a man new, he needs no introduction, super powerful card, just play him in Ionia decks, honestly, end of story. You know, I mean, put Inspiring Mentor in with him. He works additionally a bit well with this buff card. One important thing to keep in mind about Zed is with Mark of the Isles, you can't declare the attack before going for the mark if you want the clone to be buffed, because the clone gets buffed on the attack declaration. So you can't, unfortunately, do that cute thing where you would attack with Zed and then they'd block and then you'd mark. Only he would get the buff, his clone wouldn't in that case. You still could do that in certain situations, but only if you had Deathmark to be able to remove the ephemeral. Otherwise, there's probably not enough point. And then Dawn and Dusk, the finisher for the big combo we were talking about before. Enough said. Okay, now that we covered the cards in the deck, let's talk about the cards not in the deck. The biggest thing, you guys will notice, Hackerim isn't in this deck, Shark Chariot, and Soul Shepherd aren't in this deck. You might find that extremely bizarre, because of course this deck does run several tools that might be able to work with those cards, and we're even in, you know, the Ionia Shadow Isles package. So I will say it's not impossible that those cards are correct in this list, and this is something I spent hours thinking about, but I came to the conclusion currently that I think they end up being a little too clunky for this list and not helping its condition as much as it wants. There's probably too many cards to try to fit in at that point, and cards like Soul Shepherd and Shark Chariot end up not giving quite as much value to a deck like this when my win condition is being a bit more diversified. That being said, if you want to try to fit those cards into this deck, there's definitely ways to try to make that work together. In this case, I would definitely not mind fitting in like a Hackerim or something like that, because I mean, I'm curving a little low to the ground, and this deck might want to be able to play certain spots a lot slower when needing the option. All right, so that's the single biggest thing that we're cutting from this deck in terms of cards we could have but don't. It's mostly just that package, you know, for you guys who are going to be wondering about what cards we don't have. You also might notice we're not using another champion. There's not really a lot of champions I would want here. Like I said, maybe one Hackerim is okay, but this is something, if you've watched my videos for a while, you'll know I'm pretty, like, generally in the camp of champions are somewhat overrated, to the point where it's important to understand when you need them and when you don't. Champions, you know, I'm not saying there aren't going to be a decent amount of decks that run 6 champions, but don't feel forced to run them in your deck. Just strip away from your mind that gold border, treat them like they're normal cards, and ask yourself, is this actually increasing my win rate over this other thing? In reality, most champions have a pretty hard time leveling up unless you sacrifice more deck building slots around them. And when they can't level up, it's often kind of hard to fit them into your lists for as much value. Like, for example, I could jam in an Elise here, but what is she really doing? I'm not really running enough spiders. The deck is really tight, so I can't really compromise my deck building slots for more spiders, and she's not really hitting any synergy points at all with this deck. She doesn't help my win condition. She is decent value because she's a 2/3/2 with Fearsome that summons a Spiderling, but that's all she is, just decent value. So I'm not saying it's not impossible she could fit in, but I'm explaining why she is not in my deck currently and why I personally don't have plans of adding her or some of these other champions. Like I said, I could see like one Hackerim for a bit more top end for when the games are stalling out a bit longer. That's something I guess I could see for sure. And that's it for the deck build. Let's go ahead and get into the game now, boys. I can't wait to show this one off, actually. Like, zero irony, this is a really fun deck. All right, we get into our first game here against the Elise bot that we know and love. Let's see how our opening hand goes here. So we got Dawn and Dusk. You know what? I'm going to take a bit of a greedy mulligan. I'm not sure if this is proper. Honestly, I haven't played with this deck, so I don't really know. This deck is mostly just theory crafted. So we're going to have to see. I'm going to try to go for like a big early combo, and we'll have to see how it works out. So we've got the Mentor into Greenglade Duo opener. Now this case, it's going to be a little bit vulnerable to Black Spear for one turn. Okay, we'll see. Here's Hapless Aristocrat. We're obviously just going to pass here. Taking this exchange only helps him because he just gets a spider out a little bit earlier, right? There's the Elise. So we do want to develop the Green Glade duo. There's a consideration to do it on our next turn instead, potentially. Nah, I think we basically have to do it here. I think we effectively have no choice. So yeah, we'll play the Green Glade duo. Yordle. And we'll just go ahead and jump out the spider here. I'm not going to block with Green Glade duo because, of course, and here's something pretty important. I don't want to risk, you know, the duo getting killed by like a Vile Feast or a Blade's Edge. I mean, a normal deck wouldn't run Blade's Edge, but Vile Feast is a 3-of in spider decks, and you know that's just pretty dangerous. So we have one turn of a bit of a vulnerability here, you know, while our Green Glade is potentially a little bit killable. Let's go ahead and get like the one attack in with the elusive. Okay, so he's going to take the House Spider Lion, and the game is over. Look at that. It's a shame we're not attacking on evens. If we were attacking on evens, we would actually just win the game on turn 4. Like, actually, like, look at this. Look how crazy this is. If we were attacking on evens, he would literally be dead right now. Because right now, look, we have 7 mana. Right now, we Mark of the Isles, we Dawn at Dusk, and the game is over. Okay, so he's going to go ahead and just stun us for one turn. I think that's fine. We can just put Islander as, you know, a blocker that might discount our Darkwater Scourge. Darkwater Scourge is probably a little bit better to play like before the open attack. Yeah, let's go ahead and play Scourge just because he might take the attack now. In a normal situation, that would be a pretty common thing to do. So we've got the Scourge. The Scourge represents a pretty powerful block here. You know, that's fine. Nothing really crazy happening here. The most important thing about the Scourge is the lifesteal will be full. It doesn't matter in this case, but even though he's only got 3 health, we were healing 5. We're capped at 20, so again, it won't matter in this case, but Scourge will heal for 5 if it just hits anything, which is pretty insane. And then I guess we can just keep the Islander in hand. There's no downside to playing the Islander here, I guess. So we've got the rest of our combo anyway. We've got all the mana for it. Okay, so let's just go ahead and pump this out. We've got one Mark of the Isles. We're just going to use Mark of the Isles on this. And then we're going to use another Mark of the Isles on the Green Glade duo. Again, this is turn 5. Ideally, we would be doing this on turn 4, but whatever. We can see we're doing it on an 8th health unit, so he would have to have Vengeance here to stop us. Against the normal human being, in this case, I wouldn't double mark, I would only single mark, or I would make him tap out his mana for Vengeance first. But this is too funny to not do, so we're just going to stick it in here with these 3 Green Glade duos. Obviously, this is a total of 30 damage. Let's just see how he responds. Oh, that's interesting. He has no response. He's just dead. Oh, okay, sure. All right, and that's the deck. I mean, obviously, there's going to be... You know what? Because we got a good draw this game, I'll play another game. We'll play one more game, and we'll see if we're able to get as good of a draw, okay? Because I don't... Obviously, this won't happen in every single game, right? And there will be counterplay. The ability for him to Vengeance in that Dawn of Dusk is important. So against the normal human being, if you think they might be running Vengeance, you are basically going to need to chill there for a second. You're going to make him use his mana below 7 so that you have the ability to go off in that way, right? But it's a very powerful combo. Okay, let's get into a second game. All right, we got a game here. Let's go ahead and see what we've got with this deck. So this deck is largely about opening hand. You really do want something that's going to be able to go off. So we've got the Keeper and the Islander. It's a pretty powerful opener. I think I can go ahead and keep this. Cursed Keeper is a pretty intense card. I mean, there usually is just so much you can do with this. And I think Islander turn 1 into Keeper is just a super standard play. Basically, this play will just get you all kinds of places. So let's go ahead and... Ooh, Blade's Edge, sure. I mean, I'm very happy with that trade, and I basically just got this trigger for free. Alright, so we draw Dawn and Dusk as well, which is pretty fascinating. We could play it on turn 4, but without Mark of the Isles, there's not as much to be doing there. I think in this case, we just want to be developing the Keeper and the Aristocrat. I think that's going to be fine. Aristocrat first to block the Spiderling that comes out of Elise would have actually been a little bit better there. That was a minor misplay. Okay, and we've got Mark of the Isles. So this is pretty interesting. We've got the ability to go off in this way with Cursed Keeper. It's not really insignificant. I think we can go ahead and take a bit of an aggressive like open attack here. I think that's fine. Force him to jump with his spider. It's going to do a decent amount of value. So Mark of the Isles with Cursed Keeper and Dawn of Dusk does look like a combo. It's going to have to go one turn late here. So one big thing is we are attacking on odds in this case, so that's going to be a turn 5 combo. It's important to be aware of that. It's a very interesting spot for a stun, but I guess he's just proactively developing that. So we've got a total of 5 mana here. We need 7 for the big combo, and we have the ability to Death Mark as well if we want to. Probably not in this case. And I think I have no problem with this situation. I mean, Navori Conspirator is not really a great play here. I don't really care too much about returning something to my hand here. So we've got the Elise. We're obviously just going to go ahead and block this out. And this looks like a pretty good jump on this 4. Obviously, we can't block with the Cursed Keeper, so that's fine. I'm going to take a little bit of damage in this spot. No problems here whatsoever. We've got a total of 5 mana, and we need to spend 2 of it, because of course we don't want to be burning this mana. So playing the Navori Conspirator here is fine. We don't have a great bounce, unfortunately, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. You know, still not terrible value to have here. So we've got our 7 mana, and there's a few different ways to play the spot. We can go for the Conspirator's ability to almost get us to lethal here. So I want to outline exactly like how powerful this combo is. Like, check this out. If we use Mark of the Isles on Navori Conspirator, it goes to 6. And then if we use Dawn and Dusk, it'll be 18 elusive damage that he can't block. That is almost a kill. His Nexus will be at 2 health if we do exactly that. And there's no way he can stop it either, because Mark of the Isles will push the Conspirator outside of the range of cards like Grasp and Black Spear. If we wanted to be super cheeky and put him on those cards specifically, you could do a line where you Dawn of Dusk and then wait to see if he plays a card like that and then Mark. You could maybe burn his card out from his hand, like bait it out by doing that. And the problem is, though, of course, that if they don't play it, then you've lost your opportunity to Mark. Because if they just let it resolve, then, you know, you don't get the buff, which is not good. In this case, let's instead go ahead for the big combo of Mark on Cursed Keeper. I think that's going to be fine. I could actually put him on having like a response to this, but I think I'm not going to. I mean, why take the risk in this case? Let's just go ahead and do the actual safe full combo and just show off like this kind of like basic combo. So we Mark, we Dawn and Dusk. So we've got a Cursed Keeper that's ephemeral here. He's got Grasp, and he actually does use it on the Navori Conspirator. That's pretty interesting. So we've got our 3 Cursed Keepers and a Spiderling along for the ride, because, I mean, hell, why not? And we're just going to go ahead and swing for the fences here. I mean, there's not a terrible amount to do. I think I'll hang my Spiderling back, I guess, actually, in this board state. Gives him a little too efficient of a block, but I think this is fine either way. And you'll see here, basically, I've got 3 things that he gains really low value out of blocking, and every time they're going to hit for 4, it'll just recreate a 4 on my board. So there's not a lot he can really do here against this, because, I mean, we have a pretty intense amount of value on the board. There's the Zed, John a little bit too late, but of course, with this much raw value, I think this is going to be totally fine. Let's go ahead and glimpse in the spot, actually. Yeah, that's fine. We could have done a chump block. I mean, we don't really need to chump block here. Well, let's just sit. Sitting here is a little bit better, I guess. Yeah. Zed. I don't really want to block with Zed anyway. Putting Zed to 1 health just makes it so that he can use Vile Feast on it or something. He's using the Guile here. I mean, if I'm worried about the damage this turn, I guess I could glimpse beyond that. I think I'm not really worried about that. Now that he's less cards in hand, my Zed is a bit less vulnerable. I'll actually play the Zed out and block like 1 damage here. I think that's okay. Putting him in a 1 card in hand, and he's already used 1 Blade's Edge, makes it kind of low odds. So I think the easy play here is to just take the, you know, the value block on the 2 most important units, and then the spider will block the 3/2, the highest amount of damage it can block. It can't block this fearsome, and then we'll go ahead and glimpse beyond the spider on the block, right? So this is why we didn't glimpse beyond earlier, and what this does is basically with glimpse beyond, it means that the block is declared, but our unit is killed anyway. So check this out. You see this blue thing? That means he doesn't get this attack through because the block got declared. So no attack, and we're only taking 5 damage here. So that's just gonna end up being fine. I don't think there's a real problem with that. We don't have like our hand right now is a little awkward, I guess. There's not really like a great hand going on here. We got Butcher as well, so we mostly just have like Shadow Shift Z. I mean, we've got a pretty powerful swing here. I don't really mind just kind of like sticking it in. I'm down for this. I mean, we'll be able to clean up his board pretty nicely. We don't really have like great tricks here. Could be Vile Feast, that's the spook. Yeah, he actually has the second Blade's Edge and the Vile Feast. Is he casting those both on the same target? That's pretty fascinating. Okay. Yeah, sure. He really wants that Zed dead, I guess. So, as you can see, we're still owning the board here. This is totally fine. Nothing really wrong with the situation. We got value on the Cursed Keeper. I mean, the amount of value we got on that Dawn of Dusk Cursed Keeper is actually just way too much for him to be able to do anything about, honestly. He does end up just kind of getting blown out here. Go ahead and Conspirator this Escaped Abomination. One thing you'll notice about the Escaped Abomination is that their mana cost is the same as the Keeper. It's 2, so you can still just go ahead and rebounce this, reheal it, develop, then avoid Conspirator for a lot of value. Okay, and we should be able to close it out on our next attack, we're assuming. I mean, it would be pretty embarrassing if we weren't, to be perfectly honest. It's an interesting attack spot there. Looking for the open attack against this 2/2. I guess we actually have to play this for the open attack to go through now with those 2 blockers. Alright, and we made it through. So this is an example of a game where maybe your full combo doesn't go off. You know, you don't get like the super crazy opening combo. You still do just fine. You know, the Cursed Keeper with, you know, the big Dawn of Dusk, that's still okay. Even if we hadn't drawn Dawn of Dusk, you know, there's so much that Cursed Keeper will offer. You can do just a crazy amount with it. And we get our perfect lethal here. Alright. Oh, wait. it's trying to level up even though he's got 0 Nexus health. That's BM. Alright, and that's the deck in a nutshell. So it's a pretty powerful deck. It's an interesting kind of different way of playing this color combination without using the ephemeral package. Seems weird at first, but we clean up. Alright boys, that's going to be it for me, and I'll see you guys next time.